The alarm bells rang through Luna Station at 3 in the morning, Earth time. Dr. Lisa Kane jumped out of her bed and ran to the communication center. Her bare feet slapped against the cold metal floor as she rushed through the corridors. "Something big was happening. What do we have?" she asked as she entered the main control room. The screens were filled with strange symbols and patterns that hurt her eyes to look at directly. "We got a signal," said her assistant, Tony Martinez. He looked scared. "It came from deep space, really deep space. The computers say it traveled faster than light somehow." Lisa stared at the screens. She had been working as Earth's chief alien, language expert for 5 years, ever since humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel. Everyone knew this day would come eventually. The day when someone out there would finally notice Earth. "How long ago did it arrive?" she asked. 20 minutes. "We tried to decode it, but the patterns are unlike anything we have seen before. There are at least 3 different writing systems mixed together." Lisa sat down at her workstation and began typing commands. The symbols on the screen shifted and changed as her computer programs analyzed them. She had spent years preparing for this moment, creating software that could break down unknown languages by looking for mathematical patterns and repeated structures. "Get me Admiral Morrison on the line," she said, without looking away from her. "Screen. Tell him we have first contact." While Tony made the call, Lisa worked on the message. The symbols were beautiful in a strange way. Some looked like crystals with many sides. Others resembled the tracks that insects leave in sand. A third type looked almost like music notes, but with too many lines and curves. "Admiral Morrison is on his way," Tony reported. "He will be here in 2 hours." Lisa nodded but did not stop working. 2 hours was not much time to decode humanity's first message from alien life. But as she worked, patterns began to emerge. The crystal symbols seemed to represent concepts and ideas. The insect tracks were numbers and measurements. The musical notes were probably grammar and sentence structure. Hour by hour, the message became clearer. Lisa felt her heart racing as she realized what she was reading. This was not a friendly greeting. This was not a welcome to the galaxy. This was a warning. By the time Admiral Jack Morrison arrived at Luna Station, Lisa had translated most of the message. She printed it out on paper and handed it to him as he walked into the control room. Morrison was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been in charge of Earth's space defense for 10 years. "What does it say?" he asked. Lisa took a deep breath. "It says we need to stop exploring space immediately. It says we are dangerous and unpredictable. It says if we do not stop, they will make us stop." Morrison read the paper carefully. His face showed no emotion, but Lisa could see his hand shake slightly as he held the message. "Species designation Human Terra," he read out loud. "Your expansion into galactic space has been noted. Cease immediately. Your species exhibits dangerous tendencies toward conflict, unpredictability, and resource exploitation. Compliance is mandatory. Non-compliance will result in containment protocols. You have been warned." The room was quiet for a long moment. Everyone understood what this meant. Humanity had been noticed by some kind of galactic government, and they did not like what they saw. "How many species sent this?" Morrison asked. "At least 3 based on the writing systems," Lisa replied. "But my computer analysis suggests this message template has been used many times before. The grammar structures are very formal and standardized. They have done this before." Morrison walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Earth was visible as a blue dot in the distance. "How long do we have?" The message does not say. "It just says compliance is mandatory." Morrison turned back to the group. "I need to call an emergency meeting on Earth. Lisa, I want you and your team to keep working on this message. See if you can learn more about who sent it." "Admiral," Lisa said carefully, "there's something else. The message contains data about other species they have contacted. I think this Galactic Council has been around for a very long time. They might have warned hundreds of species over the centuries. What happened to those other species?" Lisa looked at her computer screen. "I do not know yet. But the data suggests that most species either submit completely or fight back. I have not found any examples of species that tried a third option. Morrison nodded. Keep working on it. I will be back in 6 hours with the leadership team. After Morrison left, Lisa continued analyzing the message. She discovered that the Galactic Council called itself the Coordinated Species Alliance for Galactic Stability. The message included technical data showing that they had ships, weapons, and technology far beyond anything humans had developed, but Lisa also found something interesting. The message contained cultural information about the species that sent it. The crystal beings seemed to value order and logic above all else. The insect species worked together like a hive mind. The third species was harder to understand, but they seemed to focus on long-term planning and tradition. Tony, she called to her assistant, look at this. None of these species seem to value the same things humans do. Tony looked at her screen. What do you mean? Well, humans value creativity and individual thinking. We like to solve problems in new ways. We ask lots of questions. But these species seem to prefer stability and following rules. So, Lisa smiled for the first time since the message arrived. So maybe they do not understand us as well as they think they do. When Admiral Morrison returned, he brought with him Captain Ryan Brooks, the military strategic advisor, and Professor Helen Carter, Earth's top expert on international relations. They gathered around Lisa's workstation as she explained what she had learned. They have sent this same warning to dozens of species, she reported. Most species either surrender immediately or prepare for war. But I think they might be missing something important. What? Asked Professor Carter. They assume all new species will react the same way, but humans might be different. We have something they have not seen before. Captain Brooks looked skeptical. What could we possibly have that advanced aliens? Do not, Lisa pulled up her analysis of human culture versus the alien cultures described in the message. Curiosity, the desire to learn and cooperate. Most species, they warn, either get scared or get angry. But what if we got grateful? Admiral. Morrison raised his eyebrows. Grateful? Think about it, Lisa continued. They took the time to warn us about the dangers of space exploration. They could have just attacked us or ignored us. Instead, they warned us. What if we thanked them for caring about galactic stability? What if we asked them to teach us how? To be better? Professor Carter leaned forward with interest. That would be completely unexpected. In all my years studying diplomacy, the most powerful tool is often doing something no one expects. Captain Brooks shook his head. It could be a trap. They might see gratitude as weakness. Or, said Professor Carter, they might see it as wisdom. Lisa is right. Based on her analysis, no species has ever responded to their warning with genuine interest in learning and cooperation. Admiral Morrison was quiet for several minutes, thinking. Finally, he spoke. Lisa, I want you to draft a response message. Not a surrender, not a declaration of war, but a thank you note. Thank them for the warning and ask them to teach us how to be good galactic citizens. Are you serious? Captain Brooks asked. Dead serious. If we are going to survive first contact with an advanced galactic civilization, we need to do something. That gives us an advantage? Lisa is right? Our advantage might be that we think differently than other species. Lisa began typing immediately. I will need time to get the translation perfect. We only get one chance to make a first impression. How long do you need? Give me 3 days. I want to make sure every word shows respect, curiosity, and genuine desire to learn. Admiral Morrison nodded. 3 days. Then we send humanity's first diplomatic message to the stars. As the meeting ended and everyone returned to their duties, Lisa remained at her workstation. She looked at the alien warning message one more time, then began composing humanity's reply. For the first time since the warning arrived, she felt hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, humans could turn this threat into an opportunity. 3 days later, Dr. Lisa Kane sat in the communication center at Luna Station, staring at the message she had written. She had rewritten it dozens of times, checking every word and symbol to make sure the translation was perfect. This message would represent all of humanity to the galaxy. Admiral Jack Morrison stood behind her, reading over her shoulder. "Are you sure about this, Lisa?" "As sure as I can be," she replied. "I have checked the grammar structures against their original message. I have made sure we use the formal speech patterns they expect, but the content is going to surprise them." Professor Helen Carter walked into the room carrying a thick folder. She had spent the past 3 days researching every diplomatic first contact in human history, looking for lessons that might apply to alien contact. "I brought the cultural materials you requested," she said, setting the folder on Lisa's desk. "Music samples, art images, literature excerpts, and scientific papers. Everything that shows the best of human civilization," Lisa nodded. "Good. The message needs to show them who we really are, not just what we can do." Captain Ryan Brooks entered the room looking worried. "Admiral, I need to report that some of our military commanders are not happy about this approach. General Patterson thinks we should be preparing our defenses instead of sending thank-you notes to aliens who threatened us," Morrison sighed. "No, but we have had this discussion already. If these aliens wanted to destroy us, they would have done it already. They have faster-than-light travel and advanced technology. Our best weapons would be useless against them." "So we are gambling everything on being polite?" Brooks asked. "We are gambling everything on being human," Morrison replied. "Lisa, show him the message." Lisa pulled up the translation on her screen. The alien symbols appeared alongside the English text. "Here is what we are sending." She read it out loud. "Esteemed Galactic Council and representatives of the Coordinated Species Alliance for Galactic Stability. We, the people of Earth, have received your message regarding our expansion into galactic space. We want to begin by expressing our sincere gratitude for your concern about galactic stability and for taking the time to warn us about the potential dangers of our actions." Brooks interrupted. "Gratitude? They threatened us. Let me finish," Lisa continued. "We understand that our species is new to galactic civilization and that we may not understand the proper ways to behave in the larger galactic community. We are genuinely interested in learning from your wisdom and experience. We would be honored to receive guidance on how to become productive and responsible members of galactic society." Professor Carter smiled. "This is the important part. Listen to this next section," Lisa continued reading. "We recognize that our species may seem unpredictable or dangerous to established galactic civilizations. We do not wish to cause instability or conflict. However, we believe that our differences might also offer something valuable to the galactic community. We would welcome the opportunity for cultural exchange and peaceful dialogue. We are including samples of human art, music, literature, and scientific achievements," Lisa added. "Not to show off, but to demonstrate that we are a species capable of beauty, creativity, and peaceful cooperation." Brooks looked at the message on the screen. "What if they see this as weakness?" Professor Carter shook her head. "Captain, I have studied diplomacy for 20 years. The strongest position in any negotiation is often the one that surprises your opponent. Every species they have contacted has either surrendered immediately or threatened war. We are doing neither. We are doing something completely different," Morrison added. "We are treating them as teachers instead of enemies." Lisa saved the message and turned to face the group. "There is one more thing." I added questions at the end. "Real questions about galactic civilization." She scrolled to the bottom of the message. "We would appreciate answers to the following questions if you are willing to share your knowledge. What are the greatest challenges facing galactic civilization today? How do different species resolve conflicts peacefully? What mistakes should we avoid as we learn to travel among the stars? How can we contribute positively to galactic society?" Morrison nodded approvingly. "Good questions. They show we want to learn, not just survive." "When do we send it?" Brooks asked. "Now," Morrison said. "Lisa, transmit the message." Lisa took a deep breath and pressed the transmission button. The message converted into quantum signals and shot out into space faster than light, heading toward the coordinates where the warning had originated. Message sent, she announced. Now we wait. While Earth waited for a response, life on Luna Station continued. Lisa and her team worked on improving their translation programs, preparing for whatever message might come back. Professor Carter researched more human cultural materials to share. Captain Brooks worked with Admiral Morrison on plans for peaceful contact, just in case the aliens agreed to meet far across the galaxy. Ambassador Zenthka received the human message at the Galactic Council headquarters. The crystalline being had been expecting either a surrender or a war declaration. Like all the other species they had warned over the centuries. Instead, they found themselves reading something completely unexpected. Zenthka called their assistant. Please ask High Arbiter Veltar and Consul Myra 7 to come to my office immediately. We have received the human response. When the three alien leaders gathered, Zenthka displayed the human message on their communication screen. High Arbiter. Veltar, a reptilian being with scales that changed color with mood, immediately became suspicious. This must be a trick, Veltar said, their scales turning dark red. No species responds to our warnings with gratitude. They are trying to buy time while they prepare their weapons. Consul Myra 7, whose insect-like species communicated through both sound and chemical signals, released a scent that indicated confusion. I am not detecting deception patterns in their language structure. The chemical composition of their message suggests genuine curiosity. Look at these questions they ask, Zenthka said, highlighting the end of the human message. When has any species ever asked us about the challenges we face? When has any species asked how they can contribute to galactic society? Never, Veltar admitted, but their scales remain dark. Which is exactly why this is suspicious. Zenthka studied the cultural materials the humans had included with their message. There were images of human art showing incredible diversity and creativity. Music samples that seemed to express emotions the crystalline being had never experienced. Literature that told stories of cooperation between different human groups. Look at this, Zenthka said, displaying a human painting of people from different cultures working together. Their species is not unified like ours. They have hundreds of different cultures, languages, and belief systems. Yet they cooperate. Many species have internal diversity, Veltar pointed out. But look how they handle it, Myra 7 said, analyzing the human materials. Most species with internal diversity either fight until one group dominates or they separate into different planets. These humans seem to have found ways to work together despite their differences. Zenthka continued reading the human message. They admit they might seem unpredictable or dangerous, but they also suggest their differences might be valuable. No species has ever said that before. What do you recommend? Veltar asked. I think we should study these humans more carefully before we make any decisions, Zenthka replied. Their response is unlike anything in our historical records. Myra 7 released a scent indicating agreement. My species recognizes patterns of genuine learning behavior. These humans are not trying to deceive us. They are trying to understand us. The Council will need to vote on this, Veltar said. Most members will expect us to proceed with standard containment protocols. Then we will need to convince them that these humans represent something new, Zenthka decided. I'm going to recommend that we send a diplomatic mission to observe them directly. A diplomatic mission? Veltar's scales flashed bright yellow with shock. We have never sent diplomats to a warned species before. Exactly, Zenthka said. Which is why it might be the right thing to do. Back on Earth, 3 weeks had passed since the message was sent. Lisa checked the communication arrays every day, but no response had come. Some people began to worry that the aliens were preparing an attack. Others wondered if the message had even reached its destination. Admiral Morrison called another meeting at Luna Station. Any word from our galactic neighbors? Nothing yet, Lisa reported. But that might be good news. If they were planning to attack immediately, they probably would have done it by now. Or they are gathering a bigger fleet, Captain Brooks suggested, Professor. Carter looked up from her research notes. I have been thinking about their political system. A council with over 200 species would need time to make decisions. They probably have to debate and vote on everything. You think they are discussing our message? Morrison asked. I think we gave them something they have never had to discuss before, Carter replied. A species that wants to learn instead of fight or hide, Lisa turned from her computer screen. Admiral, I have been monitoring deep space communications. There has been a lot of quantum signal traffic in the direction our message went, much more than normal. 6 weeks after Earth sent their thank you message, the deep space monitoring stations detected something that made everyone's heart race. Ships were approaching the solar system, big ships. Ships that move faster than anything humans had ever built. Dr. Lisa Kane was eating breakfast in the Luna Station cafeteria when the alarm started ringing. She dropped her coffee and ran to the communication center, just like she had done when the first message arrived. How many ships? She asked as she entered the control room. 12 that we can detect, replied Tony Martinez, her assistant. They stopped at the edge of our solar system, just past Pluto. They are not moving closer, but they are definitely there. Admiral Jack Morrison arrived 30 minutes later, along with Captain Ryan Brooks and Professor Helen Carter. They gathered around the main display screen showing the alien ships as tiny dots of light. Any communication from them? Morrison asked. Yes, Lisa said, pulling up a new message on her screen. It came an hour ago. Much shorter than their first message. She read it aloud. Species Human Terra. Diplomatic mission authorized by Galactic Council. Request permission to enter your solar system for peaceful contact. Will approach slowly to demonstrate non-hostile intent. Please indicate preferred meeting location. The room was quiet for a moment. Captain Brooks was the first to speak. They are asking permission? I thought they could just take whatever they wanted. Maybe they can, Professor Carter said, but they are choosing not to. That is a good sign. Admiral Morrison studied the display. Lisa, can you respond to them? Yes, what should I say? Morrison thought for a moment. Tell them we welcome peaceful contact. Suggest we meet at the asteroid belt. Neutral ground, halfway between their ships and Earth. Lisa began typing. Should I ask them anything? Ask them how many representatives they are bringing and what they need for the meeting. Show them we want to be good hosts. As Lisa worked on the response, Commander Pete Sullivan arrived from Earth's orbital shipyards. He was in charge of building Earth's small fleet of space exploration ships. Admiral, I have 20 ships ready to escort the diplomatic mission, he reported. They are not warships, but they can provide protection if needed. No, Morrison said firmly. No weapons. If we are going to meet them as friends, we meet them as friends. I want our ships to have all weapons powered down and doors open. Show them we trust them. Captain Brooks looked worried. Admiral, that could be suicide if this is a trap. Captain, if this is a trap, our weapons would not save us. Anyway, but if this is real diplomatic contact, showing trust might be the most important thing we can do. 3 days later, Commander Sullivan led a small fleet of human ships toward the asteroid belt. The ships were exploration vessels, research stations, and communication platforms. No weapons were visible. Instead, the ships broadcast messages of welcome in every alien language Lisa had managed to decode. Dr. Lisa Kane was aboard the lead ship with Professor Carter and a team of artists, scientists, and musicians. Admiral Morrison had stayed on Earth to coordinate, but Captain Brooks came along to represent Earth's military in a peaceful capacity. Contact, announced the ship's communication officer. The alien fleet is approaching. 3 ships, much smaller than the ones that stayed at the edge of the solar system. Through the ship's windows, everyone could see the alien vessels. They were beautiful in a strange way. One ship looked like it was made of crystal, reflecting light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Another ship seemed to be grown rather than built, with curves and shapes that looked organic. The third ship was perfectly geometric, made of metal that changed colors as it moved. Incoming message, the communication officer reported. Lisa moved to her translation station. The message appeared on her screen in the same 3 alien writing systems she had seen before. They want to dock with our lead ship, she announced. They are sending 3 representatives, one from each species. Professor Carter checked her diplomatic notes. Perfect. We prepared for exactly this scenario. The docking process took an hour. Human engineers worked with alien technology to create a safe connection between the ships. Finally, the airlock doors opened. Ambassador Zenthka was the first alien to step aboard a human ship. The crystalline being was taller than any human, with a body that seemed to be made of living diamond. Light moved through their crystal form, in patterns that were almost hypnotic. High Arbiter Veltar followed. The reptilian creature walked on 2 legs like a human, but their skin was covered in scales that shifted from green to blue as they moved. Their eyes were large and seemed to see everything at once. Consul Myra 7 came last. The insectoid being had 6 arms and moved with precise, coordinated motions. Their head had compound eyes and antennae that twitched constantly, apparently sensing things humans could not detect. Professor Carter stepped forward as Earth's lead diplomat. She had practiced this moment for weeks, learning the proper greetings for each alien species. "Welcome to our solar system," she said, using the formal speech patterns Lisa had taught her. "We are honored by your visit and grateful for this opportunity to meet." Ambassador Zenthka's crystal body pulsed with different colors. Lisa's translation device converted the light patterns into words. "Your species' response to our warning was unexpected. We come to understand your intentions." "Our intentions are to learn," Professor Carter replied, "to become good neighbors in the galaxy." High Arbiter Veltar's scales flashed yellow, which Lisa's notes said indicated curiosity. "You show no fear, you display no weapons. This is not normal behavior for warned species." Captain Brooks stepped forward. "We brought no weapons because we see no enemies here. We brought no soldiers because we hope to make friends." Consul Myra 7 released a chemical scent that Lisa's equipment analyzed as indicating surprise. "Your military representative speaks of friendship. This is unusual. Why?" asked Dr. Kane, genuinely curious. The 3 aliens exchanged looks that were somehow recognizable despite their completely different faces. Ambassador Zenthka answered, "In our experience, warned species respond with fear or aggression. They either submit completely or prepare for war. None have ever asked questions or sought understanding." Professor Carter led the group to a conference room that had been specially prepared for the meeting. The walls displayed human art, music played softly in the background, and the table was set with foods from many different human cultures. "Before we discuss galactic politics," Carter said, "would you like to experience human culture? We prepared a presentation about our species." High Arbiter Veltar's scales turned bright orange. "You want to share your culture with us? Even though we warned you to stop expanding into space?" "Especially because you warned us," Carter replied. "Your warning helped us understand that we need to learn about galactic society. Teaching and learning require sharing." Over the next several hours, the humans showed their visitors examples of human achievement. They played music that made Ambassador Zenthka's crystal body resonate with harmonious vibrations. They showed art that caused Consul Myra 7 to release scents indicating wonder and appreciation. They shared stories of human cooperation that made High Arbiter Veltar's scales cycle through colors that indicated deep thought, but the real breakthrough came when the aliens began asking questions about human society. "Your species has hundreds of different cultures," Ambassador Zenthka observed. "How do you prevent constant warfare?" Dr. Kane smiled. "We do not always prevent it. Humans fight sometimes. But we also learn from our fights. We find ways to solve problems together." "Show." "U.S.?" High Arbiter Veltar requested. Professor Carter pulled up historical examples on the room's display screen. "Here is how we solved the problem of global communication. Here is how we learned to share resources between different continents. Here is how we created international laws that most humans follow." Consul Myra 7's antennae twitched rapidly. "You solve problems by combining different perspectives?" "Yes," Carter replied. "We believe different viewpoints make solutions stronger." The aliens were quiet for a long moment. Finally, Ambassador Zenthka spoke. We must ask you about something. Our analysis of galactic history shows problems that the Council has been unable to solve for centuries. Would you be willing to look at these problems? Captain Brooks leaned forward. What kind of problems? High Arbiter Veltar S. scales turned. Deep blue indicating seriousness. Ancient defense systems that prevent access to entire star systems. Resource conflicts between member species. The mysterious disappearance of civilizations. You want our help? Dr. Kane asked, surprised. We want your perspective, Consul Mara 7 clarified. Your species approaches problems differently than any we have encountered. Professor Carter looked at her human colleagues, then back at the aliens. We would be honored to try. But we are very new to galactic civilization. We might not understand the complexities. Ambassador Zenthka's crystal form pulsed with what Lisa had learned was their species' version of laughter. Perhaps that is exactly what we need. Fresh eyes that have not spent centuries assuming certain problems cannot be solved. The meeting continued for 12 more hours. The aliens shared data about galactic civilization, its history, and its current challenges. The humans asked questions that no one had thought to ask before. 2 weeks after the first meeting in the asteroid belt, Admiral Jack Morrison sat in his office on Earth reading reports that seemed impossible. The alien representatives had shared detailed information about problems that had puzzled the galaxy for hundreds of years. Now human scientists and strategists were working day and night to find solutions. Dr. Lisa Kane entered his office carrying a thick folder and wearing the biggest smile he had seen from her in months. Admiral, you need to see what we found, she said, setting the folder on his desk. The aliens shared data about 3 major galactic problems. Our teams have been analyzing them for 2 weeks, and we think we have solutions. Morrison opened the folder. The first section was labeled Ancient Defense Systems. The second was Resource Allocation Conflicts. The third was Missing Civilizations Mystery. Start with the defense systems, Morrison said. Lisa pulled out a detailed map showing several star systems marked in red. These are star systems that became inaccessible about 800 years ago. Ancient automated defense networks activate whenever any ship approaches. The defenses are so powerful that even the most advanced galactic military forces cannot get through. What makes these systems so dangerous? They were built by a species that disappeared long ago. The defenses use technology that the current galactic civilization cannot understand or defeat. Every ship that gets too close is destroyed instantly. Morrison studied the map. How many star systems are we talking about? 47 systems. Some of them contain planets that could support millions of people. Others have rare resources that the galaxy desperately needs, but no one has been able to reach them for centuries. And you think we can solve this? Lisa grinned. Commander Sullivan thinks we can. He studied the alien data about how these defense systems work. They are designed to detect and destroy large, powerful ships. The galactic military has been trying to overwhelm them with bigger and better weapons. That makes sense. What is wrong with that approach? Everything, Lisa replied. Commander Sullivan realized that these ancient defenses are looking for the wrong thing. They expect threats to be big and obvious. But what if the threat was small and cooperative instead of large and aggressive? Morrison raised his eyebrows. Explain. Human military tactics often use small units working together instead of massive individual attacks. Sullivan thinks we could disable these defense networks using swarms of tiny ships that work as a team. Would that actually work? Lisa pulled out technical drawings. Look at this. The defense systems scan for ships above a certain size and power level. But if we sent hundreds of small ships, each one barely registering on their sensors, we might be able to slip through. Then what? The small ships work together to disable the defense network from the inside. Like ants taking apart something much bigger than themselves. Morrison was impressed. What do the aliens think of this idea? High Arbiter Veltar was fascinated. Their species has never considered using small cooperative units. They prefer individual strength or overwhelming force. Lisa flipped to the second section of the folder. Now look at the resource conflicts. This is even more interesting. The resource section contained charts showing trade disputes between different alien species. Some species needed certain minerals that were common on other species' planets. Some species produced foods that others required for survival. But instead of trading efficiently, the galaxy was full of conflicts over who controlled what resources. The problem is their economic system, Lisa explained. They think about resources like a pie. If one species gets more, another species must get less. That sounds logical, but it is wrong, Lisa said excitedly. Professor Carter figured this out. She studied human economic history and found examples of positive-sum economics. Trade situations where everyone benefits? Morrison looked at the charts. How would that work with aliens? Look at this example. Species A needs a mineral that is common on Species B's planets. Species B needs a type of food that Species A grows easily. Right now, they fight over who controls the mineral mines. But if they just traded minerals for food, both species would have more than they need. The aliens never thought of that? Lisa shook her head. Their civilizations are so old and established that they think in terms of protecting what they have instead of creating new wealth through cooperation. They have been doing things the same way for thousands of years. What does Professor Carter recommend? She wants to introduce human-style trade agreements and economic cooperation models. Show them how trade can make everyone richer instead of just moving wealth around. Morrison was beginning to understand why the aliens were so interested in human perspectives. What about the missing civilizations? That sounds like the most serious problem. Lisa's expression became more serious as she opened the third section. This is the one that worried me the most when I first read about it. Over the past 1,000 years, 12 different civilizations have simply vanished. Vanished how? They were all spacefaring species, some of them quite advanced. They had colonies on multiple planets, trade relationships with other species, and thriving cultures. Then, over a period of a few decades, they just stopped communicating with the rest of the galaxy. Morrison felt a chill. What happened to them? That is what the Galactic Council has been trying to figure out for centuries. They sent investigation teams to the planets where these civilizations lived. The planets are still there, and sometimes they find evidence of advanced cities and technology, but no people, no bodies, no signs of war or disaster, just empty worlds. That is terrifying. Lisa nodded. But here is the interesting part. I analyzed the data about all 12 missing civilizations, and I found a pattern that the aliens missed. What pattern? Every single one of these civilizations received a warning from the Galactic Council before they disappeared. Morrison sat up straight. They were all warned species? Yes, and more than that. They were all species that responded to the warning by isolating themselves completely. They stopped exploring space, stopped trading with other species, and focused entirely on their own worlds. So the containment protocol might actually be causing the disappearances, Lisa finished. I think these species became so isolated that they lost the ability to deal with external challenges. When something threatened them, they had no allies to help and no experience solving problems with other species. Morrison stared at the data. That means the Galactic Council's safety protocol is actually creating the danger it is supposed to prevent. Exactly. And it means that if we had followed their warning and stopped exploring space, we might have eventually disappeared too. Morrison closed the folder and looked at Lisa. Have you shared these findings with the alien representatives? Not yet. I wanted to discuss them with you first. These discoveries could challenge thousands of years of galactic policy. Schedule another meeting, Morrison decided. We need to share this with them immediately. 3 days later, the conference room at Luna Station was full again. Ambassador Zenthka, High Arbiter Veltar, and Consul Mera 7 had returned to hear what the humans had discovered. Commander Pete Sullivan joined the meeting to present the military solutions, while Professor Helen Carter prepared to discuss the economic proposals. Dr. Lisa Kane began with the defense system solution. Commander Sullivan used holographic displays to show how small ships working together could penetrate the ancient defenses. Your species uses swarm tactics? High Arbiter Veltar asked, their scales flashing colors that indicated intense interest. All the time, Sullivan replied. We learn that many small units working together can accomplish things that single large units cannot. Ambassador Zenthka's crystal body pulsed with thoughtful patterns. We have always believed that individual power was the key to overcoming obstacles. Individual power is important, Sullivan agreed. But coordinated group power can be even more effective. Professor Carter presented the economic solutions next. She showed examples of human trade agreements and explained how mutual benefit worked better than competition for resources. Consul Myra 7 released sense indicating amazement. You create wealth through cooperation rather than taking wealth through conflict? Yes, Carter replied. When species work together, they can create more resources than any species could create alone. But it was Lisa's presentation about the missing civilizations that created the biggest reaction. When she explained the pattern she had discovered, all three aliens became very still and quiet. You believe our containment protocol is causing species to disappear? Ambassador Zenthka asked. I think isolation makes species vulnerable, Lisa replied carefully. When species stop interacting with others, they lose the skills needed to handle new challenges. High Arbiter Veltar's scales turned deep purple, which indicated fear. If you are correct, we have been destroying the species we were trying to protect. But you can change the protocol, Professor Carter suggested. Instead of containing new species, you could integrate them gradually. Teach them to be part of the galactic community instead of cutting them off from it. Consul Mara 7's antennae twitched rapidly. This would require convincing the entire Galactic Council to change policies that have existed for millennia. Change is difficult, Lisa agreed. The Galactic Council chambers had not seen such intense debate in over 300 years. Representatives from 217 different species filled the massive circular hall, their voices, sense, light patterns, and sonic vibrations, creating a chaos of communication that the universal translators struggled to process. Ambassador Zenthka stood at the center podium, their crystal body reflecting the chamber's lights as they presented the human proposals to the assembled council. The debate had been going on for 6 hours, and emotions were running high across dozens of different species. The humans suggest we abandon protocols that have maintained galactic stability for millennia, declared Senator Korthvex of the Metallic Confederacy. Their robotic voice echoed through the chamber. This is dangerous thinking that could destabilize everything we have built. High Arbiter Veltar stepped forward, their scales shifting to deep blue to indicate serious intent. Honored colleagues, our current protocols have not maintained stability. 12 civilizations have vanished under our watch. The ancient defense systems continue to deny us access to valuable resources. Resource conflicts drain our energy and cause suffering. We cannot call this stability. A wave of communication swept through the chamber as representatives discussed the points among themselves. Consul Myra 7 released chemical signals that their translation device converted to words. The insectoid species has reviewed the human analysis, Myra 7 announced. Their pattern recognition regarding the missing civilizations is mathematically sound. The correlation between our warnings and subsequent disappearances cannot be ignored. Elder Quinta of the Ancient Observers, one of the oldest species in the council, spoke with a voice like distant thunder. We have followed the same protocols for 8,000 years. Change of this magnitude requires extraordinary proof. Ambassador Zenthka activated the chamber's holographic display system. Then let us provide that proof. The humans have requested permission to demonstrate their solutions. The chamber fell silent. In the entire history of the Galactic Council, no warned species had ever been invited to address the full assembly. Absolutely not, Senator Korthvex declared. Warned species are contained for good reason. We cannot allow them into our most sacred chambers. Why not? Asked Representative Ilamoon of the Peaceful Traders. If they have solutions to our problems, should we not hear them? The debate continued for another hour before Elder Quinta called for order. We will vote. All in favor of allowing the human delegation to present their proposals directly to this council? The voting process took 30 minutes as each species registered their decision through their preferred communication method. When the final tally appeared on the central display, the chamber buzzed with surprise. 112 species voted in favor. 105 voted against. The motion passed by the smallest margin in council history. 3 days later, Dr. Lisa Kane stood in the same chamber where galactic policy had been made for thousands of years. She was accompanied by Admiral Jack Morrison, Professor Helen Carter, Commander Pete Sullivan, and Captain Ryan Brooks. They were the first humans ever to stand in this place. Lisa looked out at the assembled representatives and felt the weight of history. Everything humanity had worked towards since receiving that first warning led to this moment. Honored members of the Galactic Council, she began, her words translated instantly into 217 different languages. We thank you for this opportunity to share our perspectives on the challenges facing galactic civilization. Admiral Morrison stepped forward to address the assembly. We come not as conquerors or competitors, but as potential partners. Our species has much to learn from your wisdom and experience. But we also believe we might have something valuable to contribute. Commander Sullivan activated a holographic display showing the ancient defense systems. Let us demonstrate our proposed solution to the automated defense networks. The display showed how small human ships would approach the defense systems in coordinated groups, each ship too small to trigger the ancient sensors. The assembled representatives watched as the simulation showed hundreds of tiny vessels working together to disable the networks from within. Impossible, muttered Senator Korthvex. The defenses are too sophisticated. Sophisticated, yes, Sullivan agreed. But sophisticated in ways that assume all threats will be large and obvious. They were not designed to handle distributed, cooperative attacks. Elder Quintal leaned forward with interest. Your species has tested these tactics? We use similar approaches in our own military operations, Captain Brooks replied. Small units working together can accomplish things that single large units cannot. A representative from the Crystalline Union spoke up. Even if this works, disabling the defenses could be dangerous. We do not know what the ancients were trying to protect. Professor Carter addressed this concern. That is exactly why cooperation is important. Instead of one species taking all the risk, multiple species could work together to explore these systems safely. Share the danger, share the knowledge, share the benefits. The chamber filled with discussion as representatives considered this idea. Ambassador Zenthka called for attention. Please present your analysis of the resource conflicts. Professor Carter stepped forward with charts showing galactic trade patterns. Honored representatives, your civilizations have been fighting over resources for centuries. But these conflicts assume that resources are limited and that one species gaining more means another species must have less. She changed the display to show human economic models. Our species has learned that cooperation can create new wealth. When species trade what they have plenty of for what they need, everyone benefits. Show us an example, requested representative. Ila-Moon. Carter highlighted two species that had been in conflict for decades. Species A has mineral-rich planets but struggles to grow enough food. Species B has perfect agricultural worlds but lacks the minerals needed for their technology. Instead of fighting over who controls which planets, they could trade minerals for food. Both species would have more than they need. Consul Myra 7 released sense indicating excitement. This could resolve dozens of ongoing conflicts. But what about species that have nothing others want? Asked a representative from the far-reach territories. Every species has something valuable, Carter replied. Knowledge, skills, cultural perspectives, or resources that others need. The key is finding the right connections. Elder Quintad gestured for attention. Present your findings about the missing civilizations. The chamber became very quiet as Dr. Lisa Kane stepped forward. This was the most sensitive topic challenging the Council's fundamental policies. Honored representatives, we analyzed the data about all 12 missing civilizations, Lisa began. We found a pattern that explains their disappearances. The holographic display showed a timeline of warnings, isolations, and disappearances. Every missing civilization followed the same path. They received warnings, they isolated themselves completely, and within a few decades they vanished. What is your conclusion? Elder Quinta asked. Isolation makes species vulnerable, Lisa replied. When civilizations cut themselves off from the galactic community, they lose the ability to handle new challenges. They have no allies to help them and no experience working with others to solve problems. Senator Korthvex's robotic voice filled with static indicating anger. You suggest our containment protocols caused these disappearances? We suggest that complete isolation is more dangerous than careful integration, Professor Carter answered diplomatically. Instead of cutting off new species, the Council could guide them gradually into the galactic community. High Arbiter Veltar stepped forward. The humans propose a mentorship program. New species would work with experienced Council members to learn proper galactic behavior. This would require completely restructuring our first contact protocols, observed Ambassador Zenthka. Yes, Admiral Morrison agreed. But if the current protocols are not working, perhaps it is time to try something new. The debate that followed lasted for 8 hours. Species after species stood to voice their opinions, concerns, and questions. The humans answered every question patiently, providing examples and explanations. Finally, Elder Quinta called for a decision. We must vote on 3 proposals. First, shall we attempt the human solution to the ancient defense systems? Second, shall we implement their economic cooperation models to resolve resource conflicts? Third, shall we replace our containment protocols with integration and mentorship programs? The voting took over an hour. When the results appeared, the chamber erupted in sounds, scents, and lights indicating surprise and excitement. All 3 proposals passed. Though by narrow margins, Elder Quinta stood to address the assembly. By the will of this council, humanity is granted provisional membership status. They will work with our species to implement these new approaches over the next 10 galactic standard years. 6 months later, Dr. Lisa Kane floated in the zero-gravity section of Harmony Station, the first joint human-alien research facility. Through the massive windows, she could see ships from dozens of different species working together on projects. That would have been impossible for any single civilization.